Mistress, my ex left me for now, wants me to be part of her support group cause he cheated on her too and we now share the same pain. Told her to get a psychologist instead. Over 17 years ago, my ex-husband cheated on me with a woman I didn't know, but she knew who I was. He left me for her when our only daughter was a baby, and I just moved on with my life. I wasn't going to fight for a man who made immature decisions without thinking of the consequences. He married that woman, and I focused on having a healthy co-parenting relationship for my daughter. He never showed any remorse, even telling me that our relationship was a mistake and that the other woman was the love of his life. That helped me see he's not someone I want or need in my life. Now he's cheated on her. And for some reason, this woman who's always had a cold, distant relationship with me is trying to talk to me every day. I found out about his infidelity through my daughter who wasn't affected by it, so I didn't give it much thought. My only concern was whether he'd still be able to have our daughter over on the weekends like usual. But his wife has started sending me messages explaining what happened even though I never asked her. In the past, I only reached out to her if he didn't answer a question about our daughter. It's obvious she needs someone to talk to. But even when I respond briefly, she keeps sending me long voice messages about it. I get that she's going through something, but why come to me? I don't want to be rude, but I really don't care about how she or he feels. In one of her messages, she said, "You know how I feel now." And, yes, maybe I do, but that was 17 years ago. It's not the same. To be completely honest, she can't compare her situation to mine at all. I was a new mom when my husband told me he'd been cheating because I was boring in bed and didn't appreciate him. She, on the other hand, knew he was unfaithful when she married him. So it's not quite the same situation. I've tried ignoring her, but when I bring it up with my family or friends, almost all of them say things like, "Oh, but she must feel lonely. She wasn't to blame for being the other woman. You should be more empathetic." Or my favorite, "She needs someone to talk to." They are basically telling me it's my responsibility as a feminist to support her. I get that she's not to blame for him being a cheater, but as a full-grown adult, she chose to marry a man she knew had cheated with her while his wife was pregnant. So why should I now feel obligated to be her support system? When she had a choice to do the right thing, she didn't. So why is it suddenly my duty to be her friend? It doesn't make sense, and the women around me keep insisting I should feel empathy for her. She and he knew exactly what they were getting into, and I don't see why I need to be her free therapist. Being cheated on isn't my whole personality, and I don't want to talk about it with her 247. I'm just going to keep ignoring her because, frankly, I don't care how she feels, even if that makes me a bad feminist for not empathizing. Edit? No? I can't block her because she still lives with him, and I need to have her contact info in case of an emergency with my daughter. Honestly, it's strange how many people are commenting and messaging me about what I should say to her or even drafting messages for me. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to use words from strangers who don't know me, my feelings, or the full situation. It feels like people are projecting their own issues onto my post. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Personally, I just find your family really weird. Just from the title, the situation seems so absurd that it made me laugh. You don't owe her anything. Tell her to find a therapist because you don't care. My mother was someone's lover, so she has the mentality of you can't judge the lives of others. It wasn't her fault to fall in love, so that's kind of the way she and my siblings think. I'd be brutally honest with her just like you were in the post. You're absolutely right. You can't compare her situation from 17 years ago to hers now. She knew exactly what she was getting into, and now she has to lie in the bed she made. You're not her therapist, and, honestly, she shares the blame for sleeping with a married man, knowing his wife was carrying his child. As for your family, I don't even know how to describe it. Your mom justifying her own actions like that? EU. At one point, I thought about being totally honest, but then I thought that would only bring unnecessary problems if they get back together because it seems like it and just answer things like "what a shame" or downcast face with sweat emoji. And she sends me audios of more than 2 minutes that I don't usually listen to because I don't care. Something very similar just happened to me. My abusive ex's new wife had a breakdown and left him, then showed up at my door wanting to hang out. We've always had a polite but distant relationship. Luckily, I was out of town and told her we could hang out when I got back. Truth is, I don't want to hang out with her, and I definitely don't want to rehash all the crap you put me through. I'm in no mood to be back in that space. Plus, there's the whole issue of her putting up with it for so long. She dealt with way more than I did, but my family seems to think that staying together through abuse is somehow an accomplishment. Anyway, I just humored her and kept flaking until she left me alone. That was years ago for me. I'm over it. I don't want to go back, and I don't want to hear about what she went through. I've already heard enough from my kids. My family had the same reaction. They used to say that in the end, my ex and his wife were really soulmates just because they were together for 17 years. Now for the update 2 weeks later. Hi. It's been a while since I posted, and I just want to give a little update for those who are concerned. First of all, a bit of background. My mother had a long-term affair while I was a teenager and well into my adulthood. Their relationship lasted for years until he died, and I don't think his wife ever found out. That's why my mother tries to manipulate me into not judging my ex's wife, saying things like no one chooses who they fall in love with. She sees herself in that woman, which is why she's always said that my ex-husband and his lover, now his wife, are soulmates and that I shouldn't stand in the way. I was very young at the time, and my mother was the only person I could turn to for a bit of support. Narcissists always prey on the vulnerable, and she took full advantage. Now I have limited contact with her, though my daughter does spend time with my family. As for my friends, and opinions about the other woman vary. Many believe it's misogynistic to judge them because they're single women, and it's the man who should be blamed, and we should show solidarity with other women. I usually agree with that perspective, but not in this case. I can feel empathy when the woman didn't know or was a minor being groomed. But here, I have no pity. She knew exactly what she was doing. Women can also choose to be mean and cruel. We're not weak, but my ex's wife is fully accountable for her choices. I know that explanation might be unnecessary, but some people didn't understand my family's or friends' behavior. And honestly, it feels good to vent. So a few days ago, I actually confronted my ex's wife. I'd had an incredibly stressful day, and seeing her messages pop up on WhatsApp pushed me over the edge. I sent her a voice message telling her I'm not interested in her life or her suffering. I said I'm not her friend, nor do I want to be. She never apologized for her actions, and now she expects me to join her support group for women cheated on by my ex. I let her know that she walked into this with full knowledge of who he was. Knowing he'd already cheated on the mother of his child, she married him anyway, believing she'd be different. I'd love to post that audio here. It was 5 full minutes of catharsis, telling her exactly how I felt. She got upset and we ended up arguing, which was exhausting. I definitely don't want issues to disrupt 17 years of normal co-parenting. I forwarded one of her audios to my ex after listening to all of them and realizing she hasn't once apologized. Not that I need her apology. She just complained looking for someone to trash him with or act as her unpaid therapist. I told my ex to tell his wife to back off and find a real therapist. He apologized and said they're both working on their marriage. So she's still dealing with anger and insecurity. Obviously, since I went through the same thing, he said she thought we could share the pain. I told him I'm not her friend, and this affects our co-parenting. So he needs to make sure she respects my boundaries. He reluctantly agreed to talk to her. And for the past 3 days, I haven't received any messages from her aside from one today letting me know my daughter was sleeping over there. So it seems like it worked. I don't care if they have a happy or miserable marriage, and I don't care if she's happy knowing he cheated but still stays with him. I just want to live in peace, free of drama from people who, at over 40, are still mentally stuck in high school. Karma said, "Hold my purse. Lol. They'll cheat with you, then on you. Mistress and your mom are so delusional. It's crazy. You should give your ex's wife your mom's number. That's the perfect shoulder for her to cry on since they can bond as mistresses. Good for you setting boundaries and standing up for yourself." Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my soon-to-be ex-husband why I'd take him back when the nanny does more for the family than he does? My husband and I are separated and getting a divorce. We have a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old. He owns his own business and told me he'd be home by 5:30 to 6 every night. I get home around 6 to 6:30, so I didn't think anything of him always being home before me. I had our 3-year-old in extended daycare and our 8-year-old in our school's after-school program thinking he was working. Halfway through last school year, I hired a nanny instead of using the extended care programs after our oldest had issues with her program. About 2 weeks in, I got a call from the nanny saying my soon-to-be ex had locked them out and told her to take them to the park. The kids were hungry, and she didn't have car seats. His house is walking distance from school and daycare, so she had a need of them. I called him, and he said he'd gotten home early, wanted some space from the kids, and didn't want a random 18-year-old in the house. I had to leave work early to let them in. When I spoke with the nanny, she mentioned she was always home when she got there with the kids and that he was difficult, demanding that she and the kids stay in one of the kids' rooms, ignoring the kids if they try to talk to him and getting upset if she left the room to grab his snack. That was the last straw for me. I filed for divorce by the end of the following week, and the kids and I moved out by the end of the next month. I ended up letting go of that nanny. And now we have Amina, 24. Amina is a Middle Eastern refugee with 3 kids of her own, ages 247. Hiring Amina has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. I come home every day to a clean house, homework done, and some of the best Arabic food I've ever tasted. I have no idea how she manages it all, but her support allows me to enjoy my time with my kids instead of scrambling to make dinner, clean up, and get my 8-year-old to do her homework. She handles grocery shopping, keeps track of school events, and even takes care of things like clothes and school supplies shopping for the kids. My soon-to-be ex never did any of that. I once left him with the kids for a week while I went on a work trip, and they lived on McDonald's and pizza, which wrecked my 8-year-old stomach. When I came back, the house was in the worst shape I'd ever seen. Our 2-year-old, at that time, ran out of clean clothes, and he bought her new ones instead of washing the dirty ones. Now he is asking about getting back together, saying it's better for the kids if we're together. I told him he's never truly thought about what's best for the kids. Even when he takes them for the weekend, all he does is bring them to Grandma's house. I ask him why I should go back to him when Amina does more for us than he ever did. He argued that he works to provide for us, as if that's different from me also working. Apparently, close to double the hours he worked and for a similar pay. Now his family is calling me a bad mom, saying that if I cared about the kids, I'd want him to have 2 parents. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I personally would marry Amina. Having a neglectful, abusive parent is worse than a single parent. Ask any child psychologist. What you are describing is not laziness. It's straight-out abuse. You can lose your kids if CPS had been called in that last situation. You really need to think about the kids and not what society told us about what's good for the kids. 100%. If he doesn't live there, the kid grows up to believe he loved them, but unfortunately wasn't able to live there and be around to show it. If it's there and kicking them out the house and getting angry when they approach him, they are at risk for developing all sorts of insecurities. He doesn't seem mature enough to be trusted with your children's mental well-being. You do not have to give a reason to anyone for not wanting to reconcile. If they insist, then I found that I'm happier, the kids are more stable, and our lives run more smoothly as things are right now. That's it. No one has sought an explanation for your decision. Not even the soon-to-be ex. Ex just wants to get back together because I bet he hates paying child support and not being taken care of by OP. Screw him. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my estranged son nor meeting his child? I haven't slept in nearly 2 days, so please excuse any grammar mistakes. I'm from a country where bullying isn't taken seriously. I'm using fake names to protect my other 2 children, who I'll call Eve and Henry. I lost one of my daughters, Rose, 15 years ago due to relentless bullying by a group who never faced any consequences. One of the people responsible was Sarah, who is now married to my son, Mike. Apparently, the Madison University connected and started a relationship. A former classmate sent a video of them on a date to Eve. When we confronted Mike, he broke down saying Sarah was sorry and gave a million excuses. He even said that Rose made her own decision and that we couldn't blame Sarah. He added that if we try to make him choose, he would choose Sarah. I told him he didn't need to choose because from that day on, I had 2 dead children and that he should never contact me again. His father and siblings do the same. The only family members who didn't cut him off were his aunt and cousin. Over the years, they tried to reach out with apologies, wedding invitations, and even pictures of their son. I thought Mike understood when he wasn't notified until 2 weeks after his father's funeral. But 2 days ago, he showed up at Henry's workplace to tell him that his wife, Sarah, has terminal cancer and that he needs me because he can't handle it all on his own. Mike then showed up at my house with his son, refusing to leave until I spoke to him. After about 4 hours, I opened the door and told him to leave. Mike tried to force me to meet his child, saying his son was innocent and that Sarah has repented for her role in Rose's bullying, urging me to forgive them. I told him that Sarah's cancer is karma, to which he responded by asking how I could be so cruel, not only to them but to their child. I told him I didn't care about his child or what happens to either of them and to get off my property before I called Henry to have him removed. His aunt, my sister-in-law, called saying I'm a selfish, cruel mother who can't let go of the past. She mentioned that Rose wouldn't have held anything against the child. I told her no one was stopping her from helping them, but she made excuses. One being that it wasn't her place, even though it wasn't her place to give Mike my address or Henry's. Am I the a-hole for not helping them? What a deeply painful experience this must have been for you. Losing a child, especially under those circumstances, is an unimaginable hurt, and when a close family member is connected to that loss, the betrayal you feel becomes even more overwhelming. The fact that Mike's life has moved on with Sarah, knowing the pain her actions contributed to, is a lot to take in. You made a choice to protect yourself and your other children from further hurt, especially after how Mike responded when confronted. So it's understandable why you would hesitate to open the door to that part of your past again, especially without real accountability or meaningful actions to heal the past wounds. Mike may be asking for help, but it doesn't mean you have to forget the impact their choices had on you and your family. It's a deeply personal decision on whether to help Mike or meet his child. But remember, you are allowed to honor what feels safe and healthy for you. How do you feel about holding firm on that boundary? I know helping Mike will cause me losing contact with Eve.